So what's your seed?
It's sort of interesting. It feels like something that other people should tell you, not that you should necessarily say for yourself. But I guess I'm an excellent communicator and kind of explorer. So I explore, and then when I discover things, I'm able to communicate them to others.
Cool. And you write a lot of books, and what kind of explorations do you do?
I've written a couple books. One book was about psychedelic shamanism, and I went through a kind of spiritual crisis and wanted to see if there was any kind of deeper meaning or truth to existence. That led me to different tribal cultures, where I went through kind of their rituals using substances like ayahuasca and mushrooms and iboga. And so the work has just generally been generated out of my own fascination, wanting to learn something, and then getting excited about communicating what I've learned. And then after the second book, which was about the prophecies of cultures like the Maya and the Hopi, I got interested in applying all these different ideas to society itself. So that led me to ultimately start a company called Evolver. And we have nonprofit volunteer network organizers who put on local events, and we do interactive teleseminars around subjects like shamanism and permaculture and activism and alternative economics. We publish books, we do retreats, events, and now we're starting also to sell products and goods that we feel will help people make a transformation in their lives.
Cool. So what do you feel you learned in the explorations that you really want to put out there in like the rituals and in your journeys and with the prophecies of the Mayan and the indigenous people that you've been visiting? Like what specifically is like some of the kernel that you would really want to get out there and share?
Yeah, well, I have been sharing it obviously a lot. And obviously the books were very long and there's a lot of different types of material, but I guess in essence, I think that we tend to have what one of these North American Indian guy that we took from my film talked about as a salvation point mentality, where we expect salvation to come from outside of ourselves, through some like distant authority or technology of the future or something, and that actually that's not what happens at all. It's more of a change in mindset and recognizing that we are directly participating in whatever's going to take place, and therefore how we use our energy and our time and our awareness and our capabilities has that is the prophecy, that is the transformation.
Wow, awesome. So the transformation is individuals using their own mind to participate and how they use their thoughts and their creations?
Yeah, well, people have to go through a process that's partially an emotional, partially intellectual process, where they see that society, this civilization we're in, is in a state of crisis and that it's not sustainable, and then they have to not get so emotional that they just react, but actually then step back and use their powers of observation and analysis to kind of discern why we're in this situation, and then figure out how they would use their particular skills to help bring about a positive shift.
Right. And have you been noticing a lot of this happening as you're reaching out and touching people, and that people are going through this transformation and they are figuring out how to get beyond the crisis and learn to be sustainable?
I mean, it's happening on different levels of society. Thank you. And one thing that's very interesting right now is that a lot of people who are kind of part of what we might call the elite, social and financial and so on, are also beginning to recognize their responsibilities and are rethinking business practices, how they use their social cachet and so on. So you see that in the development of things like the B Corp, which is a new model for business that takes environmental and human factors into account, not just profit.
So, what would you tell people that that you want to are just starting this transformation process and they want to be sustainable and they want to be responsible for themselves and for this earth? What would you recommend that they do to start if they're just beginning?
Well, I mean, I guess I sort of said it already, but I would think that they have to take a little bit of a step back. I mean, I think that we, often emotionally we feel that something is wrong or that something is missing or there was some piece of the puzzle that's really crucial that our society doesn't offer us. And then, we have to figure out how we particularly can fit into being part of the change. And I think people have to have a little bit of patience with themselves. Like they're not necessarily going to get the answer in 1 second.
Right.
Sometimes you have to try things that don't work out. And somebody, for instance, somebody may have gone through law school and have legal abilities. Like they might find that instead of working for a corporation, they would want to protect the rights of the natural world or indigenous people or poor people. Somebody who does landscape architecture might want to help contribute to creating an eco-village or training, learning permaculture skills and then training others. I mean, so I can't really, there's not one specific thing. It's really a question of observing yourself and then thinking about how can I fit into the positive change.
Right, how can I contribute? Exactly why I'm doing media, because that's my background. So, do you believe it's possible to really pull together a tribe or a family of people that really will change the world or help change how we work with the world with our brains and our minds and our emotions and be in more harmony and really make this a sustainable place that's heartfelt and feels good to live here with each other and that we're all in this place to help each other?
I think ultimately that is totally possible, that we could create a more resilient, regenerative, planetary culture. I feel the word sustainability, some people like it, I mean, sometimes I like it, but it also, what is really sustainable? Everything is constantly changing. But, certainly, more resilient. And then if we see how meshed together we are by these, internet and digital technologies, new ideas or practices could actually spread all across the whole planet very, very quickly when people feel there's a need for them.
Right. What would you like to see happen in the near future? See if I have more full already. We've got this one going on. Make sure that's happening yet. What would you like to see in the near future happening in the local tribes or on the individual level, whichever one you'd like to? When I say tribe, I mean the people that we all are interconnected with, not just indigenous tribes. I mean all the people of the world that are interconnected in resilience and transformation right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of things are really happening. I think there is a spreading awareness that the need of a shift from the old paradigm of competition and domination to one of cooperation and collaboration. I think that's becoming really present in a lot of people's minds in different areas, whether it's personal relationships, love relationships, or corporate structures, or so on. And I think that could easily lead to people breaking through kind of the inertia of old structures and bringing about change in a much more rapid pace than we can even necessarily anticipate.
Do you believe that we really need to have some applications or herbs or ayahuasca, for instance, is really breakthrough for a lot of people's emotional and physical and how they use the constructs of our world? Do you think people really need these things, or can we just create software applications or just hum in our minds and be together on this?
Well, I mean, I guess I wouldn't really frame it like that. I mean, I would think that, the fact that these visionary plant sacraments exist on the planet and that they have such a transformative impact on people, changing their worldview and their relationship to their bodies and the planet and their psychology, suggests that they're, that they have a reason and a purpose. So I also don't necessarily think that everybody needs to take them, but I do see that they have a very positive impact, I believe, on a lot of people's way of life.
Right. How would you like to see some cooperation happening right now?
Well, we've been kind of modeling that through the nonprofit initiative I started called Revolver.net. And I think what we really need is like a lot of creativity in social innovation and kind of willingness to try new models and new things. So, we have about 50 local groups, and when some of them are actually sort of incubate new projects, if they're effective, ultimately those could become available across the whole network. So we've had, like in Baltimore, our group helped jumpstart a local currency called the B-Note. Other groups have been creating like eco-villages or contributing to kind of old eco-village communities that maybe haven't been so robust lately. I think that permaculture is a really great model that actually looking at what already exists and building on that, is probably sometimes the faster way to do things at this point rather than always trying to create a new thing.
What do you think about technology and software development? We're pretty close to Silicon Valley here, and do you see a future in that assisting people? And what do you think about that?
So I think that technology is a projection, or in a sense an aspect or manifestation of consciousness, because we're a tool-using and tool-making species by nature. So when we create a new tool, it reveals us to ourselves in a new way. So the process of iterating and developing new tools is actually very much a process by which consciousness evolves and develops. So I think that's essentially amazing. And I love that, at the cutting edge of social technology and social media, we've seen the power of communications mediums like Twitter and Facebook to even bring about the growth of, community or local awareness to even the point where there's like insurrections, as in the Arab world. Probably the next set of those tools would be more like tools for how to collaborate and, construct alternative social infrastructures so that people don't sort of retract back into these old authoritarian or hierarchical structures. And then on the negative side, there's all sorts of negatives. There's each level of technology has produced negative unintended consequences, whether it's plastics, genetically modified organisms, and then also a lot of our technical genius goes into really unhelpful systems like weapons systems, surveillance systems, technologies of destruction. So if we're going to survive as a species, we kind of have to get the root of that and twist it. Pull it out by the root. Now, one thought that I've developed, or other people have developed, but also that some of that may be kind of caught in our psychology because we haven't really fully reckoned with ourselves on different levels. We haven't brought all of our unconscious material up in different areas, but maybe particularly in areas around love and sexuality. There's a book by this guy, Dieter Doom, who founded a community called Tamara. One of the chapters in the book is High Tech in War, Cro-Magnon in Love. So he notes that, while we've developed this incredibly powerful technology, to destroy, and now it's like drones and so on, we haven't somehow used our analytic forebrain consciousness to deal with love and sexuality in a more straightforward way. And so actually he and a number of other people created a community in Portugal called Timera, which I visited a couple of times, which is putting forth a model of a non-possessive and sharing-based kind of community environment where love and sexuality can be lived differently. So that's been a big inspiration for me. It's funny to drift there from technology, but basically, we have to learn to master our technological projections, and to do that, we have to get to a deeper level of understanding of our own unconscious processes and projections, and we have to do that pretty quickly because the technology is getting so disturbingly destructive and so freely available.
That would be some mass change. I wonder how that framework would work. That would be pretty interesting. Do you believe that's evolution, or do you believe in evolution?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I have a company called Evolver. I think that evolution is the best model for understanding, what's happening. That in a sense, humanity is kind of moving to a place where we begin to self-realize that we're actually on one level a unified or singular organism that as a whole is in a symbiotic relationship with planetary ecology. And that's very much like the paradigm that happened in our bodies, where there was once all these microorganisms competing in the environment, and they learned to work together and create more stable structures and more complex structures, and differentiate as organs and develop bodies. So it may be that humanity as a whole is about to self-realize itself as a collective body, and from that perspective we would begin to share resources equitably and cooperate.
Cool. Yeah. Unity consciousness. So, wow, what would that look like? What would that feel like?
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing that, our current system monetized. Well, I guess it would look like a planetary tribe in a way. Like our current system, kind of took a lot of relationships that used to be human, trust-based relationships and turned them into monetary exchanges. So people used to take care of their own kids. Now the labor is outsourced. They used to make their own clothes. Now they buy clothes. They used to make their own entertainment and tell stories around the fire. Now they watch television and play video games. But we could go through a process of consciously realizing that we've gone too far along that trajectory, and then use the tools of social technology and social media to reverse engineer. One example being couchsurfing. I'm actually staying with the guy who founded couchsurfing this week. And couchsurfing took, people used to go and stay at hostels or hotels, and now they can go and make a new friend who's actually a local, introduces them to the local culture, and instead of it being a payment exchange relationship, it's a friend and a trust relationship. So that I think could very much become the model for a lot of different types of exchange that people make in the future.
How do you think this would happen? Right now, couch surfing, it's through friends of friends, hey, recommendations and things like that, or?
No.
Okay.
You look online and you find somebody and you read their profile, you can read what other people had to say about them.
And the trust is in there, and the reading.
Yeah, people rate each other, so if somebody gypped somebody or whatever, treated somebody wrong or whatever, you'll read that, you won't want to stay with that person. So I think in the future, things that are kind of hidden, will become very transparent, so you'll know, whether somebody is trustworthy. You'll have kind of like an open, transparent platform, so you'll know in advance what you're getting yourself into.
So that's
and once again, that would have a lot of ramifications, especially in the areas of sex, love, and intimacy.
So that's one of the books that just came out recently.
What is?
About transparency, or wasn't that, or about having all information free and out there. And
one of the books that we published, the open source everything manifesto or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's model right there. In
Yeah.
that book. That's called open source.
I think it's called the open source everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. Wow. So how would the monetary model work in this?
Well, we've also done through Evolve, we've done a lot of research and studying that. We've had a whole bunch of articles. We actually published 2 books. One is called What Comes After Money. It's a collection of essays by different people thinking around the subject. And the other one is called Sacred Economics by Charles Eisenstein. We also covered it in the documentary I made, 2012 Time for Change, interviewing an economist, Bernard Lietaer, who was one of the architects of the euro. And essentially a lot of people have understood that there's no reason that we should only have one medium of exchange for exchanging value that's, privately controlled by, centralized banking interests for their own purposes, that also has a set of belief and behavior programs inscribed within it.
Totally.
So it makes people, competitive, scared, anxious, because it creates artificial scarcity. So the idea is that you could replace that one, or not even, maybe even supplant, let's say, that one form of value exchange with a whole series, a bunch of sort of an ecosystem of different tools to exchange value that would have different values and beliefs and behavior patterns inscribed within them. So that could be like, one idea is a currency that has a negative interest charge called a demurrage charge, where it's connected to like a basket of goods and resources that decline in value over time. So the more you have of it, the faster you want to share it, because you're going to run, it's just going to disappear on you. So rather than hoarding it, you want to share it with people when you have it. Another idea is local credit clearing houses. We could have a number of businesses, service providers, manufacturers get together and agree to issue kind of their own form of credit in the form of zero interest loans to support local enterprises, positive things like daycare centers or local cafes or restaurants or whatever. Charles, in his book Sacred Economics, has a whole other idea around using the commons as a backer of a new currency. So there's a lot of ideas, and the whole idea would be to have a little ecosystem of different ways to exchange value that support different behaviors.
Mm-hmm. How would the law work with that? Like if someone wasn't, keeping up with their credit somewhere, it would again be the transparency of this person's reputation, basically.
Yeah, well, I also think that probably at a certain point, we would, at the moment, we've had this inertia of this industrial age and the systems that were necessary to, create this huge engine of capitalist growth, which no longer makes sense because now we're increasingly mechanizing all these forms of production. So there's less and less work for people in the old sense. So either you're going to have people who are exiled into like a no man's land of desperation on a vast scale, or we're going to say that our highest potential as human beings is to elevate the lives and way of life of everybody on the planet. In which case we'd probably do something like a universal subsidization. So we give people the right to live in their own homes, we give them tools to grow their own food, even instruction, and then beyond that, the capacity to learn and grow. One thing that's amazing about the internet is it shows you that, information can be entirely free, learning can be, universally available for people who want to learn different things.
So what do you think will happen or is required to happen for this to begin taking place?
Well, so we already see, at the sort of fringes, things are beginning to happen. I mean, even like I think less and less at the sort of cutting edge of conscious people. There's less and less desire for ownership or possession. So people are sharing zip cars or doing, office shares or or whatever it is. So I don't think it's going to be like a violent insurgence. It's more of a kind of design revolution, where which doesn't take away from the importance of things like the Occupy movement to raise consciousness of the ridiculous injustice that's built into our present social paradigm. That kind of stuff is still probably going to be necessary, but rather than an oppositional or divisive model, I think it's more of developing tools for collaboration and trust building that rapidly supersede the present social structures.
Awesome. Totally. I can see that and feel that. So what do you think is going to happen for the next 25 years? What's your prophecy?
We're probably going to see some increasing extreme environmental events, industrial accidents that will be quite tragic. At the same time, we're going to see the growth of this alternative cooperation and trust-based kind of ecosystem. And I also think that on the cutting edge, people are beginning to recognize and reckon with their own psychic capacities. And that's going to become part of a new paradigm and even become almost like a new form of energy that we tap into to affect things like climate change or group healing, collective healing, and so on.
When you say psychic capacities, you mean the capacity to use the energies or the vibrations or the thought patterns in our brain to collectively change something, such as our own patterns of thinking or weather patterns?
No, not just thinking. I'm talking about the physical and tangible things like weather patterns, or they've already done studies on remote healing or the capacity of a large number of meditators in an area to lower the rate of violent crime. So you could, for instance, run like quote unquote experiments or rituals or whatever we want to call them, where you have millions of people around the world, meditating and visualizing positive outcomes or transformative, opportunities.
So you see environmental and industrial accidents, and also the growth of our trust-based ecosystem and our psychic capabilities. Anything else? Or psychic capabilities?
Well, I mean, some people think that eventually we'll have extraterrestrial contacts, but when that'll come, we don't know.
Okay, and what about the darkness? Because like the whole idea that comes to me when I think about psychic capabilities on a mass level, or even on an individual level, I think about the people who actually don't have good intentions. So what about this darkness, and how can we work with this as we grow, expand as a mass of people together?
Well, it's really, there you have a question of whether you think that, it's ultimately a benevolent situation or random or malevolent. I really, my own experiences tend to support the sense that it's ultimately evolution is, kind of positive and moving towards, greater self-knowledge, more kindness, more complexity, more symbiosis. And so if that's the case, if that's the evolutionary paradigm, then people who are caught in, hostility, ego, they're going to be kind of outed more and more, and it's just going to become, more and more painfully absurd to see those people carry on in those ways, and eventually it'll become like almost embarrassing, for them and for everybody else. Now, how that actually takes place, I don't know. It may be that we have wars, maybe that people who are clinging to their power and resources will become, extremely violent in their efforts to hold on to what they have, or it may be that this supersession is more universal, based on, kind of the ideas that something like Rupert Sheldrake talks about in terms of like morphic resonance, the morphogenetic field effect, that has like a certain threshold of species reaches a new skill or understanding, that becomes more and more generally available, easier and easier.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet. I have another idea. So, what world will we create together? That's basically what I've been asking, but that's your specific question for Evolver Network. You want to build community for the new planetary culture. That's a lot of people's ideas coming together, basically, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure what your question is.
I guess I'm asking the question on your...
Oh, okay. What will we create together? Well, I mean, that remains to be seen. I mean, I really like this idea that art becomes a basic kind of principle of the new planetary culture, when we see a lot of things which we don't really recognize at this point as creative endeavors, begin to see them as artistic or aesthetic endeavors or kind of social sculptures. We see that obviously with something like Burning Man, where just by tweaking the rules of engagement and the way people interact with each other, you create something that actually makes a lot of people happy and joyful and exuberant, just because they're in a different environment with different rules. So it may be that art becomes kind of a functional principle for the new planetary culture.
Okay, and what do you think about the future of language?
The future of language. I don't have a great thought about that one now.
Okay. Maybe with that sound, that's the end of this. All right, and you're done drinking?
Yeah, cool.
Sweet. That was awesome. Thanks, Daniel.
Sure. So